First of all, MPs from across the region are meeting the new head of the ambulance service today. Dr Anthony Marsh will be briefing them this afternoon on the state of the service and what plans are being put in place to improve its record. One of the MPs who will be there is South Norfolk's Richard Bacon. He's on the line now from Millbank. And what are you expecting from Dr Marsh today?
Well, an update on how things are going. Dr Marsh is the man who wrote the report on the Ambulance Trust and who pointed out that despite its being one of the better funded ambulance trusts across England, nonetheless had got itself into a bit of a mess, and that the board had lost its way and didn't have any sense of the direction of the organisation and what it should be doing. And so it's very welcome that although he's only started the job very recently, he's already coming to Westminster to brief us so that we can understand what's going on and reassure our constituents. There are a number of issues. The response times were very poor in parts of Norfolk, and indeed he's already announced extra ambulances for some of the worst areas, such as Diss and Cromer and Fakenham, and they've been promised quite soon by March, so we'll want some update on that. And I'm also wanting to hear about recruitment, because one of the problems is there simply aren't enough paramedics. When last year they promised 15 extra double-crewed ambulances, it turned out that they couldn't keep the promise because they didn't have enough trained staff. Yeah,
recruitment of paramedics seems to be likely to be on high on the list of priorities, but it's one of those things that you can't train people immediately. It's going to take some time, isn't it, to get these people through?
Well, there are two things. First of all, they have recruited some extra fully qualified paramedics, but that, of course, is expensive because they're in demand. And then taking the emergency care assistants whom they have on the books, on the staff, who are perhaps capable of being trained up, but are not there yet, and that will take a little bit of time. But a briefing on that is something we'll be looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose communication from Dr Marsh is a good thing. Now he's come over to Norfolk. He's also, of course, running the West Midlands ambulance service. And I suppose with all the headlines and all the pressure of recent months, he knows that communication with people like MPs is going to be part of the way forward.
Well, one of the extraordinary things was that the only reason this really hit the headlines across the east of England, and Norfolk was one of the worst hit areas in terms of the level of service, was because across the east of England, paramedics were coming into MPs' constituency surgeries to talk to us, to tell us what was going on. We ended up in the position last summer where 15 or 20 paramedics and a dozen MPs from across the region were sitting in a room with the minister because the paramedics, couldn't find anyone within the trust, in the top management of the trust, who would listen. Now, that was a ridiculous position to have got to, and I think Dr Marsh fully understands that good communication is at the heart of getting this right. Frankly, good communication is at the heart of any successful organisation.
Yeah, and the West Midlands Ambulance Service is deemed to be running successfully with him at the helm of it, but a lot was said when he was taken on the east of England that he's going to be involved in two organisations. Will you be asking questions about that and how he's dividing his time?
Well, indeed, that is a concern for people. I think I've got, I know head teachers who have successfully run two different schools, and you know the maxim, if you want a job done, give it to a busy woman. Well, I mean, I think that applies to busy people generally, and the right manager can do more than a poor manager. And so while I understand that's a source of concern, I will be looking for some description and explanation of exactly how Dr Marsh is spending his time and what his long-term plans are.
Let's hope giving it to a busy man will be just as good as giving it to a busy woman.
Well, probably not quite as good, but it'll have to do.
Well, let us know how you get on today. I'm sure we'll be rounding this up in Matthew Gudgeon's programme this evening. Thanks very much for joining us today.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you. That's South Norfolk MP Richard Bacon, who's going to be hearing from Dr Anthony Marsh, who's running the East of England Ambulance Service now, updating the MPs from across the region.